Tonight is going to be talking about debunking macronutrient myths, which basically a lot of people are kind of misinformed when it comes to not necessarily what macronutrients are, but how they're utilized in a diet. And by diet, I don't mean a set, strict, structured program that you follow. I just mean your general day-to-day foods that you eat. In my head, diet is the music that you listen to, the food that you eat, the air that you breathe. Diet is everything that you consume. It's not just the foods that you eat, and it's not just being on a set meal program, which a lot of people feel a diet is. Anyone that's listened to my stuff before knows that I quite hate the word. I despise it. I think it's got really negative connotations around it based on what people have kind of previously been told or have heard. So today, hopefully debunking some of those macro myths. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk through some common myths. I'm going to talk through the truths behind it and the foods and stuff like that. And then at the end, if there's any questions, I can answer them. If there's any questions as we're going along, chuck them in the chat. I can answer them there and then. If they're relatable to what we're talking about, I'll answer them there and then. If they're just a random question that you just want answered, I'll save it for the end and I can do it then. But first things first, who am I? Why am I here? Why should you listen to me? Why should you trust a word that comes out of my mouth? So I've done a few talks now for the council. I'm seen as one of the kind of UK's leading personal trainers. I write a lot of articles for Reebok, Metro. I was on LBC Radio, I think 2 weeks ago, BBC Radio 5 Live, BBC Radio Cambridgeshire, Zach FM. I've written for most of the big publications like the Telegraph, Daily Mail, Men's Health, Huffington Post UK, and a lot more. I regularly get kind of asked for my comment as a trusted advisor. I've worked with over 1,000 clients across the world. I've advised tens of thousands of personal trainers through global leading companies. I do social media takeovers. I write blog posts for them and stuff like that. And a lot of other things that kind of just showcases the work that I've done over the last decade. And that's essentially why hopefully you'll trust what I'm saying. I've also done a lot of work with local councils. Like I said, I do regular talks at Eddington, where I'm based, for the council every single year, and Tansy and I have done some stuff before, and hopefully we'll do more of these in the future, which will be really, really good. Now that's all done, we can get on to the nitty gritty. So common weight loss myths that a lot of people would have heard at some point. Working out for hours a day is the only way you're going to lose weight. Eating healthier foods is extremely expensive. Starving myself is the best way to lose weight. I must do hours of cardio and eat rabbit food in order to lose weight. I can't enjoy any of the foods or drinks that I like. Certain foods will speed up my metabolism, and breakfast is the most important meal of the day. First things first, I don't like to talk about weight loss because technically, we had someone at the beginning saying they've had a haircut. Technically, they've lost weight with the haircut. I've just been to the toilet. Technically, I've just had a wee. I've probably lost about 500 mils worth of water. Therefore, I'm a little bit lighter than I was before I went. So in terms of weight loss, it's such a broad term that doesn't really give us any specificity in terms of the results that we're trying to achieve. I like to think of it in regards of fat loss. So when you're looking to achieve fat loss, you're looking to achieve a leaner physique. Don't be scared by those words and think, oh, physique, bodybuilder, bikini model, whatever. The physique is just your body, is how it looks. Achieving a leaner physique is a leaner, more trimmed, more toned physique, guys. So kind of thinking about losing weight kind of sets us off on the wrong foot straight away, because if you go chop your leg off, bang, you probably lost a stone. Easy, done. Happy? Probably not, because you've now only got one leg. So losing weight isn't actually the goal that a lot of people look to achieve. It is actually fat loss. Building lean muscle, reducing the fat, they meet in the middle. You have a leaner physique, you feel happier, feel fitter, healthier, and stuff like that. You've probably heard a lot of these myths before. I certainly have. I've heard, oh God, I've heard so many of these, especially the first one, working out for hours a day. Some of the best results we've had with clients have come through them working with us in a 45-minute workout 3 times a week. That is it. They haven't done hours of working out. They're not professional athletes. They've literally just done 3 targeted sessions a week, And then around that, they manage their food, they manage their activity levels, they manage their sleep, and things like that. So actually, in terms of burning body fat, losing weight, whatever you want to call it, working out for hours and hours and hours, doing endless cardio on machines, that isn't going to be the answer for you. And hopefully today, I'll give you a little bit more insight into that. Some common myths around carbohydrates, guys. Again, you've probably heard all of these. These were very quick to come to my head when I was writing this presentation because I've heard them a million times. Carbs make you fat. No carbs after 5 p.m. In order to lose weight, you must immediately cut carbohydrates. And some of you may or may not have heard this one, no carbs before marbs. That was a massive thing on Towie. Yes, going lower carb has its place. Sustainability and consistency wise, it isn't usually a long-term fix for a lot of people. It's great for a short kind of influx. Like, for example, if I was going away in 6 weeks, I would be a lot more aware of my carbohydrates and I would reduce them down just because it gives me a quicker result. But that would be over the 6 weeks prior to going away. It wouldn't then be my lifelong thing that I stick to. Just today, I had 2 big boxes of fruit and veg that I collected. Fruit and veg are carbohydrates. They're loaded with micronutrients. They're loaded with nutrient dense vitamins, minerals, everything that we need. Our body needs to run. It needs to operate. They come through carbohydrate-based foods. So we need those in our diet as much as anything else. No carbs after 5 p.m. honestly is a myth. Completely across the board. It's completely person dependent as well. Carbohydrates release serotonin, which is our sleepy hormone, which is why when you've had like a big Sunday roast, or maybe you've had fish and chips, or a big kind of carb heavy dinner like pizza or something, you feel quite tired. Like, people call it a food coma. That's because our brain gets flooded with serotonin. It starts to feel sleepy. So if you're someone that struggles to sleep, pushing your carbs later in the day, completely debunking that myth, could actually help you to sleep better. We need carbs for recovery. We need them for energy. When we train, when we work out, we burn carbohydrates as a fuel source. We burn glycogen, which is stored in our muscles. In order to replenish those stores, we need to consume carbohydrates. That gets broken down into glucose and glycogen. It then gets stored within the muscles, and then it's there ready for the next time we train or go for a run or walk the dog or carry a heavy load of shopping. And whatever it is you're doing, we need those carbohydrates as energy. And cutting them out in the evening, if that works for you, brilliant. If it doesn't, I eat a lot more in the evenings than I do in the mornings. So in the mornings, I'll have a small bowl of yogurt for breakfast with some fruit. Then I can go quite a long time before I eat again. Whereas it gets to the evening and I'm literally just like, I'm hungry now and I'm looking for food. But if I was to follow that and say, right, no carbs after 5 p.m., that's no veg, no fruit, not even a little bit of yogurt. It really kind of restricts what I'd actually be able to eat. And kind of restricting yourself that way, it's not a really a long-term option. It's great potentially if you think, actually, do you know what, 5 p.m. onwards is when I tend to eat all of my chocolate and crisps and things like that in abundance. Not necessarily saying they are a bad thing, but if that's when you feel like you eat more of them, then we can look at the amount of protein that you're having throughout the day, which I will talk about in a bit, as opposed to just immediately saying, right, if I just cut out carbs at 5 p.m., that's my problem solved. I'm going to be sorted. It doesn't really work that way. Carbohydrate truths, as I've already kind of touched on, they're a great source of energy and they are actually essential for fat loss. Some of these bodybuilders that you see, when they're completely shredded and stuff like that, they're having as many as a kilo's worth of carbohydrates a day in their last week, in their peak week. One of my old coaches, 2 days before his show, he would have 700 grams of carbohydrates. That's not 700 grams of potato. That's 700 grams of carbohydrates. 100 grams of potato has roughly 15 to 20 grams of carbohydrates. So he's having a hell of a lot of potato and rice and other carbohydrate sources, and yet he's as lean as possible. So that wouldn't be achievable for him had he not managed his carbohydrates. No, he didn't just wildly just go in and just eat whatever, but he utilized carbohydrates to achieve that result. Now, I'm not saying you guys are going to get on stage, but that shows that even someone who is getting as lean as probably maybe a little bit too lean in terms of health perspective, they still utilize carbohydrates. So if it works for them, it's going to work for you. I've just spotted a spelling mistake, carbohydrates. Oops. I thought I'd proofread, but I am technically dyslexic, so I'll let myself off for that. So yeah, so carbohydrates are utilized by athletes, they're utilized by bodybuilders and everyone. So why can't you utilize them? They're not the answer in terms of fat loss. Just cutting them out is not the answer. Managing them and utilizing them is the answer. I do have some tables and some information and stuff on what kind of carbohydrates to be getting in your diet. Things like rice, potato, sweet potato, quinoa, couscous, things like that. If anyone, and the difference between starchy and non-starchy vegetables as well. If you do want that at the end, Tansy, I'm sure I can chuck that in with the slideshow and with this video. So that will give you some examples of carbohydrates, which is a very common. They're the tables I use with my clients. So whenever I do a talk, they're quite common. So I can chuck those over if I haven't sent you them already. Next up, fats. A lot of people think fats are the devil. They think carbs are the devil, but they also think fats are the devil. I remember for about 10, 20 years, fats were very much demonized, especially in mainstream media, which again, it is unfair. We need protein, we need fats, we need carbohydrates, we need a range of them, and we need variety and we need consistency within them to ensure that our body has everything that it needs. So again, just cutting out one single food group isn't going to get you the result you want and isn't going to get you the health that you want either. Like, it's one thing to get a fat loss result, but it's completely one wholly other thing to just be healthy and to think, actually, yes, okay, I'm training and I want to lose weight, I want to feel better, I want to lean a physique, I want to burn body fat, whatever that goal is, but also you want longevity. Where are you going to be in 10, 20, 30 years time? How are you going to be feeling then? So it's key to make sure that we remember that when we're thinking about the foods that we're eating. So fat makes you fat. Fat isn't needed. Low fat, reduced fat foods are the healthier choice, and all fats are equal. They are the myths, guys. They are not the truths. When it comes to truths, so there are different types of fats, unsaturated and saturated. Saturated fats are the ones that can drastically increase the risk of coronary heart disease, cardiovascular diseases, atherosclerosis, heart attacks, anginas, things like that. They are very high in cholesterol. So there's two different types of cholesterol as well: LDL, HDL cholesterol, high density lipoprotein, low density lipoproteins. Again, we need both, but it's about managing those levels. So having high amounts of saturated fats will then increase the amount of cholesterol in our blood, which then increases the risk of those diseases that I've mentioned. Whereas if we can get more unsaturated fats in our diets, then we are still getting those fats in, which help to build cell membranes, help for brain function, help for a lot of key essential processes within the body without having to cut out fats completely, just being aware of where we're getting them from. So trans fats and hydrogenized fats, and however you say, I don't really like them at all. They're man-made fats which are flooded into ready meals and just basically keeping foods that normally would go off within a week or two. They then put it into a tin can or a box or whatever so that they can keep it on the store, on the shop floor, whatever, for 6-12 months, guys. So trans fats as well is something that we need to be aware of. When looking at meal packaging, foods, whatever, when you're at the shop, we have the traffic light system. So obviously you want to get greens across the board. Green for go, brilliant. There is a section where it says fats, of which saturates. So obviously we're looking for saturated fats. You want to keep that as green as possible. Potentially some meals may be going up to an orange, depending on how strict we're being with ourselves. But when something's got red for saturated fats, guys, that's when you want to kind of just be aware of ideally how much you're taking in of that, but also trying to minimize that as well. Like, it is your cakes, your biscuits, your cookies, and everything like that. They are filled with saturated fats, stodgy meals, takeaways, which are all good in moderation, as with anything, as with alcohol, having a drink, having a takeaway, they're good in moderation, but just being aware that they are flooded with saturated fats, which can lead to kind of drastic health implications, which again, we're trying to get the result, but also we want to think about our body, think about the health and stuff like that as well. A few of these bullet points I kind of mentioned in terms of productivity, because I know that a lot of people are working from home at the minute. So if we have a high amount of saturated fats in our diets, obviously we have an increased risk of higher blood pressure, coronary heart disease, stuff like that. That then means that the body is working less efficiently, which means it's harder for the body to pump blood, which means it's harder for oxygen to get around the body. It's harder for that glycogen from your carbohydrates to get into your muscle cells. It's just generally, it's kind of like walking through a muddy field. It takes a lot longer than if it was just tarmac. You're still going the same distance, you're still doing the same movement. It just takes a little bit longer for things to get done, and you have to work harder to get the same end result. So having less saturated fats in our diet can help to level out our blood pressure. You've probably all heard about cholesterol levels and blood pressure and things like that. Doctors like to keep an eye on that for good reason. So reducing saturated fats in your diet, unfortunately, they do taste great. So things like bacons and sausages and like I said, cakes, biscuits, all of those things, unfortunately, they are kind of flooded with them, and that's why they taste great. But in terms of a health perspective, they aren't really going to be the best option. But it doesn't mean that we cut out fats altogether. We still do need those in our diet. Protein. Okay, guys, I'm just going to check to make sure there's no questions. I can't even see the bar, so we'll carry on. Common myths around protein, guys. Makes you bulky. It's only for bodybuilders. Protein shakes make you fat. So protein, as with carbohydrates, as with fats, is an essential macronutrient that we need, guys. It is something that all of our cells are made up of. We have proteins, we have amino acids, which are the building blocks for proteins. We need them to create muscle, to create hair, to get nice and strong, for longevity in our life in terms of movement and things like that. So having protein in our diet doesn't make you bulky, doesn't make you big, doesn't make you like a bodybuilder. That takes years of training. That takes years of strength training, progressive overload, managing your diet, and also testosterone, which obviously there's a lot of ladies on, which you guys don't have testosterone. So just by upping your protein in your diet, you're not going to wake up one day looking like a sprinter or anything like that. It's don't worry about getting bulky, don't worry about getting big arms or anything like that. There are many health benefits of protein without having to get to that level, because you're not going to be doing the training that it takes to get to that level anyway. And so it's not really a worry of our clients, but a massive part of having more protein in the diet. In terms of, again, remember, diet, guys, isn't a specific diet. It is just the food that we eat and everything that we consume. Protein is extremely satiating. So basically that means it makes you feel fuller for longer. So if we're having protein at every meal, we're not going to be tempted to have those snacks, to have those fats that are those saturated fats in those cakes and biscuits and things like that. We're not going to be sat there reaching for things that realistically we know probably aren't going to either give us the health result that we want or the fat loss result that we want. So by increasing the amount of protein we're having in our diet, it doesn't need to be a huge increase either. It could be something simple like swapping out your toast in the morning for a bowl of yogurt with some fruit. You've got your micronutrients, your vitamins and stuff in the fruit, which are great and essential for the function of the body. And then you've got your protein and your microbes. So you kind of got the bacterial stuff from the yogurt as well to help with the gut, to help everything work on the digestive tract. But also you've got the protein from the yogurts there as well, and some healthy fats as well. So we're kind of just by making one small change, bang, we've got some more protein in our diet. We're probably going to feel a lot fuller for longer, which is an incredible part of protein. And it's also less than half the calories compared to fat. So for every gram of protein and carbohydrates is 4 calories. For every gram of fat is 9 calories. So just by opting for a higher protein source versus a higher fat source, you're saving less than half the calories, guys. So you're saving a lot more calories there by just making one small switch. And that might be something as simple as going for a chicken breast over chicken thigh, a leaner cut of beef, or having, if you go for protein sources like tofu and tempeh and stuff like that, over kind of maybe chickpeas, which might be higher carb, or other veg which can be slightly higher fat, like nuts, for example, can be quite high in fat. So being aware of that, and that there will be an increase in calories because of that, is just something to be aware of. As I've already mentioned, it helps to build cells, muscles, hair, skin, which is essential. Skin is the biggest organ in the body. By not getting protein in your diet, you're depriving it of an essential macronutrient that it needs just to function, just to grow, just to stay in one piece, essentially. The skin is amazing, guys. So by feeding it with that, you've probably seen on these TV adverts and makeups and stuff like that, they talk about collagen, they talk about collagen proteins that they put into skincare and skin regimes and products like that, because the skin needs protein, guys. It needs that macronutrient, it needs that collagen to be able to stay nice and shiny and soft and smooth and stuff like that. So just by having more protein in our diet, don't worry about getting big and bulky. Think about the health benefits of feeling fuller for longer and being able to make sure that our hair is good and our skin carries on working. And we're thinking about muscles as well, guys. As we get older, we start to experience something called atrophy, which is the breakdown of muscle. It's a completely natural process. It's why it's harder for a 90-year-old to move than it is a 9-year-old to move. A 9-year-old's got fresh, smooth muscle. A 90-year-old they've been alive for a lot longer. Their muscles will start to break down. So if we can exercise, but also have more protein in our diet, we're going to reduce the rate at which our muscles then break down. Doesn't sound potentially like a lot at first, but you need to remember, guys, the sole purpose of having muscles isn't muscles as in working out muscles. It's just to move joints. So when you pick up that food, picking your phone to your hand, there's muscles working which allow those joints to move. So if those muscles are breaking down due to insufficient protein and insufficient movement in your life and in your diet, you're not helping yourself. It's just going to increase the rate of atrophy. Whereas actually, if you can just be more mindful around getting protein into your diet, it might be something as simple as I said, getting more yogurt in, or maybe having some eggs, or actually instead of just having a salad, can you maybe put some chicken or corn or tuna with that salad? And then all of a sudden you've got your protein as well as some great vegetables there, which again, we've talked about, are going to give you those micronutrients, which are essential for the operation of the body. Studies show that even extremely high levels of protein, as much as 3 grams per kilo per day, have no adverse effects to health. So basically what that means is if you were, say, just for numbers' sake, if you weighed 100 kilos and you were to have 300 grams of protein per day, there would be no adverse effects to your health, okay? Whereas if we were to do the same with carbohydrates and fats, having a massive amount across the day, there are health implications there, like we talked about with fats, various cardiovascular and coronary heart diseases. And with high amounts of carbohydrates in our diet, you then start to look at blood sugar levels and things like that. Depending on how intense it is and for how long of the period, there is also the talk of diabetes as well in terms of carbohydrates. But with protein, there are no adverse effects by having higher amounts in your diet. With that being said, if anyone here was able to hit 3 grams per kilo per day, then and consistently for a long period of time, then I take my hat off to you, because that is a hell of a lot of protein. Just again, for numbers' sake, a tin of tuna is around 20 to 25 to 30 grams. So it's essentially like having 10 tins of tuna a day. That's how much protein it is. It's like having 10 chicken breasts a day. An average egg is around 8 grams of protein, and talking about 300 grams. So 3 grams per kilo is a hell of a lot of protein, guys. But the point of having that in is that showing you that you can have a lot and there are no adverse effects then on general things like health and well-being. A good start that I like to give clients, and something that I follow myself, is 1 gram per kilo of body weight per day. So I weigh 83 kilos at the minute. So I just try and land between 80 to 90 grams of protein. Don't worry about having to weigh out foods and stuff like that. But guys, don't think you're going to have to weigh to the closest microgram or anything like that. It's just, if you know that roughly, if you look on a packet, say you've got some eggs, and you can literally, it will say on your box of eggs, roughly per egg, 8 grams of protein. So you can say, right, I've had 3 eggs, so 8, 16, 24 grams for breakfast. Okay, cool. Nice. I'll remember that for later. Okay, well, we're going to have a chicken stir fry. We've put 4 chicken breasts in. We've got 2 people eating. We've got lunch. We've got dinner. So I'm probably having 1 chicken breast. Okay, so there's 22 there, plus the 24 earlier. That's 46. So you can very loosely start to just track it just by looking at the labels of the foods that you're eating. So it's quite easy to be aware of what you're eating. But again, I will give Tansy the tables at the end so that you can have some more specific protein sources, because I like to discuss the difference between fatty and leaner protein sources as well. But that is all in those tables for you. Another key thing, guys, is to base all of your meals around the protein source. So when you're thinking about, like, a good example is, okay, I've got a jacket potato. What goes well with a jacket potato? Instead of saying that, can we say, right, we've got tuna, or we've got some corn mince or some beef mince, whatever it is, the protein-based source. What does that go well with? Oh, we've got jacket potato. Do you know what? I fancy a chili mixed in with a jacket potato, or potentially I don't fancy that. Can we have some pasta? Then you're basing your carb and fat sources around what you've decided is your protein. It's very easy to go, okay, right, we'll have pasta, we'll have rice, we'll have potato, and then go, right, what goes well with that? Flip that on its head, have your protein first. And that's just a really good rule of thumb, because it's great for aesthetics as well as performance, as well as general health, as well as everything that I've just mentioned, guys. Okay, so kind of basing all of your meals around a protein source is an essential habit that you can kind of get into for life. Like whenever I go to the fridge and I make dinner, or I make lunch, I make breakfast, I have a snack, I always have a little bit of a conscious thought, where am I getting my protein from? And that was probably because my mum drilled that into me growing up, because she was a nurse. She was like, where are you getting your protein? And we were vegetarian, so it was a lot harder to kind of find where we were getting that from, guys. But again, another mention, if you are vegan or vegetarian, protein is even harder to get in. So making sure that we have a range of protein sources in our diet, make sure that we're getting a full amino acid profile, which is again going to be great for health and well-being. In terms of what I had to say, guys, that is kind of it. They are the myths that I see all the time, I get asked about all the time. These are the responses that I give. For some reason, okay, I can't see any questions. If anyone does have any questions, guys, please do let me know. I'm going to stop sharing this now. I do have plenty of time, guys. So any questions that you have, please do let me know. If there's any myths that maybe you've heard that you're unsure of, you can tell me those. If you want me to run through anything again, I'm happy to go through it again. That was what I had put together. But yeah, I guess we'll go from there, guys. Does anyone have any questions? Did anyone learn anything? Is anyone confused? Does anyone want me to repeat anything?
Thank you. That was great. That was just what we wanted.
Good.
Question for you.
Yes.
With saturated fats, is it true you have a certain amount of your diet to do with heart, not so much coronary heart disease, but heart arrhythmia? You actually need so much fats in your diets. Is that true? You know?
Yeah, so you do need a certain amount of fats in your diet. A good level that's a kind of base. We talked about like 1 to 1.5 grams for protein. I like to go kind of 0.5 to 0.7 grams per kilo for fats is a kind of a good start. Having a range of like this is, we're not professional athletes where you're looking at reducing 1/10 of a second off your 100-meter sprint time. Like, have cake, have biscuits, enjoy yourself, but just be aware of, actually, I'm going to look at the traffic light system. Oh wow, that's a red for saturated fats. I'll maybe only have 1 slice as opposed to 2, and then you might see 2 cakes. One's got orange for saturates, one's got red. I'll have the orange one. Do you know what I mean? It's just kind of just that mindfulness to understand that high amounts of saturated fats in our diet can lead to those adverse health effects. Whereas kind of not cutting out fats completely isn't the way to go. It's just being mindful of saturated fats don't really do a lot for us health wise. So, but they are in a lot of the yummy foods that we like. I'm a sucker for a piece of cake. Tell me, it's my birthday next week. I'm like, Mum, what are we having? Like, what cake are we getting in? But I'll just be aware that that is high in saturated fats. So I'll just be aware of that. Not necessarily like I won't have it and I won't restrict myself. It's just if I am, for example, if I'm rushing and I'm going to a shop and there's 2 ready meals, there's a lot of companies now that make ready meals that, I'm not even joking, the green light, it's all green. So like the salt is green, the fats are green, the sugars are green, brilliant. But you'll notice that that kind of best before will be in 2 or 3 days time. Whereas there'll be other ones with all red, where it's like, oh yeah, keep me in the fridge for a month, I don't mind, I'm good, I'll chill. Right, it's like
trans fats in it, sort of thing, keeps it fresh.
Exactly, yeah. So keeps it fresher for longer. Whereas alternatively, there are some ready meals which have the greens. So if I've got a choice between 2 lasagnas, that's got reds in it, that's got greens, give me the green any day of the week. It's still a ready meal. It's still a lasagna. It's still probably a similar price. I just know that just very visually, green go, red. Ooh, I'm just having to think there. Maybe I can find another option. It's all about just awareness more than restriction. I don't like restrictive words. I don't like good and bad foods. It's just like with the example I just said, kind of like, you're going to have lasagna anyway. Wouldn't you rather have one that is going to be better health-wise than potentially the other one? Better, not the best choice, not the only choice. Like, I love crap food as much as everyone else. I have my vices. Lord knows I love sugar. Like I have a massive issue with, I'm either teetotal or I'm looking for the next sweet thing all the time. And that's when I kind of go, right, okay, protein, satiating, fuller for longer. I kind of just go through those processes. Yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Sorry guys, I talk a lot.
That's cool. I've got a question.
Elaine, you got a question?
Right, yeah. Sorry, my thing's not very good. I was wondering about all the like Michael Mosley stuff.
Yes.
And the low carb, and because I get lots of low carb things on my Facebook, and people who are like pre-diabetic are losing enormous amounts of weight, and they say they've changed all their stats. But then I think probably not eating much carb, because a lot of them don't eat much at all now. And that's not healthy, as you said. And what you said today is actually really clear. It's quite good. It makes it quite simple. But that does work for people who are low carb. And like you say, sugar, because they go weak and wobbly without eating sugar, because they've probably eaten too much sugar in the past. So that's quite a problem. And people get hungry if they eat too much carbs. So it's quite, I'm never sure whether I should be eating a lot less carbs or,
It's as I said, it is massively person dependent. And when you bring diabetes into the frame, it's people are pre-diabetic because essentially they've had an abundance of carbohydrates for a very long period of time, and their pancreas just starts stopping to secrete insulin. So then, and if that happens, where your pancreas just completely stops secreting insulin, you die, which is why they need shots. So when people are pre-diabetic, it's kind of like, if your bath's overflowing, what do? You turn a tap off. So it's kind of like, if someone's getting pre-diabetic because they've had an abundance of carbohydrates, what do? You turn a tap off. They don't stop eating. They just manage their carbs a lot better and maybe go for a better amount per day. So what might be low carb for them probably won't be low carb for me. I mean, this week I'm on a low carb diet, but I'm still having 120 to 150 grams of carbs a day. And if you think there's 20 to 30 in a banana, I can essentially have 5 bananas a day and still be classed as low carb. I've got 2 rice meals a day. I have fruit with my breakfast, and I'm still technically low carb because that's lower carb than what I was on last week. So it's all kind of thinking about where you're at, what you want to achieve. And yeah, like I said, low carb is great. And if you want to drop weight in a couple of weeks, buzzing, do it. I guarantee you'll lose weight. But 10 years time, are you going to be able to stick with it? Probably not. And that's where families and socials and Christmases and things like that come in. So if I know, for example, like I said, it's my birthday on Tuesday next week, I'm not even going to think about anything like that. I'm just going to eat what I want. So this week, guess what I'm doing? I'm being really good.
Planning
next week,
thinking about
it's conscious thought, knowing that I'm going to be going pretty AWOL next week. Clients will probably buy me chocolate. Mum's already sorted a cake because our birthdays are 2 days apart. So she's like, right, Joe, what cake do you want? So this week, it's just a normal week for me. So I'll be as good as I possibly can. And then the next week for my birthday, I've then given myself that room to go crazy. And then the week after, I'll just be back to normal again. And that's how you you make it a consistent thing in your life, where it's like Monday to Thursday, I'm so busy with work, I don't really have a lot of time to think. So it's very easy to stick to a diet. Whereas at the weekend, it's like, ooh, okay, so if I can be as good as possible Monday to Thursday, where I'm so busy anyway, then when it gets to Friday and Saturday and Sunday and stuff, it's like, okay, take the dog for a nice long walk on a Sunday. I've got football Saturday, which is a bit of cardio. And then Friday, I'll probably go for an evening walk or something. Then I know that I'm doing something to kind of counteract the fact that I know within myself, I'm going to eat more at the weekend, because I always do. So it's kind of finding what works for you, and just kind of saying that, like, yes, long time low carb is great, and for these people that are pre-diabetic to step away from that is incredible, and it's insane, and it's amazing, and from hopefully their pancreas is loving it. But in terms of longevity, is it going to be how they live for the next 30 years? Probably not. It's just making sure it works for you. Yeah. And that's the key thing, is it has to work for you, your body, your times. I don't have kids, but I have a dog to look after. So whereas some people have kids and a dog, some people don't have kids, they don't have a dog. People do I get up really early in the morning. Some people do night shifts. Everyone's different. So you need to work out what's going to work for you, what's going to work for your family, your lifestyle, while also being, like I kind of said to Richard, being mindful of, I know that's got saturated fats in it, so I am going to have some, but I'm going to be mindful of the fact that I have had some. And it's like, I know that that's got carbs in it, and I know it's probably got a lot of carbs in it. So I'm going to be mindful of the fact that I have had it. And then when I'm back at the office tomorrow, I'll try and not maybe take some homemade snacks in, instead of just going for the biscuit jar or whatever. I'm just using examples from clients that have given me before. So does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, it does.
Good.
Yeah, thanks.
Rich, no, you're welcome. Richard, did you have another one, did you say?
I was going to say about having a vegan and vegetarian diet. You can't get all of your amino acids, isn't it? You have to have some supplements, don't you? Is that true?
Yes. So with veganism and vegetarianism, there is, so when you eat meat and fish, it's very easy to get a lot of amino acids, omega-3s and stuff like that. So when you then turn to veganism and vegetarianism, it is then harder to get those, because you are reducing your food sources. So by cutting out meat, so for example, by cutting out fish, I don't eat fish, so I supplement with omega-3s, because I don't eat cod and salmon and haddock and all these oily fishes, which are going to give me those omega-3s. And it's the same with when you go vegan or vegetarian, you're reducing the amount of foods that you eat. Therefore, we need to be wary of getting a variety. And a good friend of mine, she did a talk for my clients, actually. She is a vegan herself. She's a personal trainer and she's a nutritionist. And she said it's just, again, being a little bit more mindful about the foods that you're eating. And she suggested, if you are vegan or vegetarian, having like kind of like a timetable to make sure you are varying up the protein sources. Like it's very easy as a meat eater to go, right, chicken, tuna, steak, chicken, tuna, steak, chicken, tuna, steak. It's not that easy for a vegetarian. And there is no one food you can eat as a vegetarian or vegan, especially vegan. There is no one food you can eat that will give you a full amino acid profile. So by varying everything up and making sure that we get a variety, and we're making sure that we're not just having too much of one thing, that will be a massive, massive help. And that just comes through a massive variety in the veg that you're eating, nuts, changing up your nuts. So maybe 1 week have walnuts, the next week have Brazils, and have pistachios, just getting a range of everything in your diet. The bigger the range, the easier it'll be for you to hit that.
Nutrition. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, that's right. Any other questions? No?
One in the chat box, I think. It says, hi, Joe. What is the process of your next challenge and when will it start?
Yes, it's me. Sorry,
did you mean
doesn't work?
That's fine. Did you mean one of my challenges, or does Tansy do ones?
Yes, your challenge. I see you now in Facebook, in Instagram.
Oh, you've seen me on Instagram?
Yeah.
Okay. We can have a chat about that separately. The way the challenges work with MitFit is we go into essentially what I've said to Elaine and stuff is very personal. So I need to, when someone wants to join our challenges, I like to speak to them about where they're at, their goals, what works for them, kind of the stuff that we've touched on with food and stuff like that. So if people are interested, then I'm more than happy. I'll put my email in the chat and we can talk about that. Otherwise, it'll be very boring for everyone else listening and talking about someone else's lifestyle preferences and diet and stuff like that. But what I can also do is I'll give my emails there if anyone wants it. I will give Tansy this video in case anyone wants a recap. And also, like I said, those food tables as well. So you have more of an idea of what protein sources are, what carb sources are, what fat sources are. So at least then the way I work with my clients is like you say, right, it's dinner time, open the fridge, what we're going to have. You can look and say, that's a protein, that's a carb, that's a fat, boom, 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 go. Do you know what I mean? So it's not weighing anything, it's not measuring anything. It is literally just, you can look at a meal, and it works really well when you go out to restaurants and stuff like that, is I look at a meal and I know what my protein source is, I know what my fat is, I can get some veggie in. And it's just that, again, it's just that mindfulness just to keep, it sounds like a lot, but I promise it isn't, guys. It's literally 20-30 seconds a day of conscious thought that does genuinely just become second nature. And the key and the biggest success behind my clients' results is making it about you. I don't eat fish, so you ain't going to see me eating fish. I'm not going to program myself into eat fish. I don't eat it. I was vegetarian for 19 years. I might eat fish if I went to a friend's house and their parents put it down, I'd probably be polite and get it in, but I'm not asking for it to be on my menu. So if you're the same with certain foods, guys, if you don't eat it, then that's fine. It's like with anything in life. If you only travel around the UK, it doesn't mean that you can't travel. It just means that you're restricted in the places you can go because you've restricted yourself to one country. It's the same with food. It's like, I don't eat fish, so therefore I supplement with omega-3s because I'm not getting them through my diet. So it's just that mindfulness and just personalizing it to you, the foods that you like, the foods that you enjoy. And those tables, like I said, I'll send to Tansy, they'll be a massive help because they'll give you specific, like, duck fatty protein source, chicken breast lean protein source, chicken thighs fatty protein source. So it kind of breaks it all down for you, so that you are aware of that. And if there are, so Richard, are you vegan or vegetarian? Or are you just interested?
Meat reductionist. I do have days where I go vegetarian. I tend to change. Okay,
cool. Yeah, so I've got some vegan and vegetarian stuff as well, which I can like talks and recipes and stuff, which I can send over to Tansy as well. Awesome. Yeah, and again, yeah, like I said, it's just that mindfulness around like variety for the aminos, full amino acid profile.
What happens with a low protein diet? I mean, what is the problem? Because I've realised I have a low protein diet. Talking to you today, thank you. And what happens if you have a low protein diet? That's Jeanette speaking.
Yes, thank you, Jeanette. So again, it's just like a higher rate of atrophy. So obviously, there's going to be more chance for your muscles to eventually break down. And don't be scared by the kind of words that I'm using. I don't mean that you're just going to like next week wake up and can't move. I just mean like I remember seeing this, it's quite poignant, this MRI, I think there were two 80-year-old women, and circumference wise of their thighs was exactly the same. And their bones were the exact same. One of them was pure muscle, one of them was fat. Just by looking at that, I can tell you which one's going to be more mobile. So it's just, in terms of health benefits and stuff from having a lower protein diet, it's going to help keep you fuller for longer, like I said. So it's just, can we kind of sneak that protein in, just being mindful of movement. Like I said, skin and hair is essential for, protein's essential for that. Protein's in every single cell in our body. So like we utilize that to create cells, and we go through trillions and trillions of cells every single year. So we're constantly regenerating our cells. So having more protein in our diet will be just a more efficient way of running the body. But then also, like I put in, going really, really high with protein, there are no adverse effects on the health as we would see with kind of high fats and high carbs. Okay. So just kind of a little thing like if you have 2 poached eggs for breakfast, can you push it to 3? Or if you have a
I have
snack, one, can you push it to 2? There we go. That's technically doubling your protein at breakfast if you can push it from 1 to 2. It doesn't have to be a mammoth change. It can be like, for my dad, for example, I was worried about him, kind of like he's about losing muscle and stuff now that he doesn't cycle to work and stuff. So I was just saying, like, look, when you're having instead of having a salad sandwich, can you continue having a ham in your sandwiches, because there's just a little bit of protein in there, just a little bit more than you were going to be having. And it's like, instead of having, like you said, instead of having 1 egg for breakfast, can we push that to 2? Instead of having 2 packets of crisps and a crunch bar for a snack, can we have a bowl of yogurt with some fruit? It's just where can, and again, once you get the tables, I've talked about the food tables, it'll be a lot clearer. That you see those protein sources in front of you, and you'll be able to just sneak them in a little bit more, which will be a big difference. And again, it's just all mindfulness, Jeanette. It's just being aware that you're not having that much is huge. The fact that you've noticed that on this call is amazing, because you've just gone, actually, wow, I'm probably not having much. So I promise you, from this point onwards, you will always, your life won't be the same again, because now you're sat there thinking, oh, actually, I don't have as much as I maybe should do. So then you'll start to think, husband or friend or sister or whoever might say, right, let's go for dinner. And you're like, okay, I need to make sure I've got some fish in, or some chicken, or if it's vegetarian, can I get some tofu, tempeh? Do you know what I mean? So straight away, just from this call, you're going to be starting to think about that, which will put you in a better position than you were an hour ago.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. No, thank you. Appreciate
That's
it.
right.
Yeah.
No, fun. Elaine's got another one.
I just on what you said then, my it was quite a few, it was about 10 years ago or a bit more. My friend was having chemo, and she went on some faddy diet. It was low carb, no gluten, no this, no that, lots of things she cut out, and she wasn't feeling brilliant. And she got into trouble at Addenbrooke's, and the consultant said, no, you've got to eat carbs, this, that, and the other. And then she came to see me, and I phoned my mum, who was like you. My mum was a nurse, and my mum, always remember my mum said, you need the carbs to enable the cells to grow, and especially when you're having chemo, you need that more than ever. And you need the protein to for their cells to work or something, can't remember. And it's really important to have them both, and the fat. And I always remember her saying that. And I know that was a while ago, and I know knowledge has changed since, but as a basic premise, and I've always thought you can't, that's why I worry about the low carb diets and the this and the cutting out fat. So it is about a balance, isn't it? The right sort of balance.
100%. It's all about a toolbox. Like a builder can't build a house with a hammer, but it doesn't mean that he doesn't need a hammer. He needs it for certain jobs, and then he needs a screwdriver for other jobs. And it's like low carb has its place. Someone that, like I said, pre-diabetic, or like for me, if I'm going on a beach in 4 weeks, for these 4 weeks, I'm probably going to keep my carbs as low as I feel I can. But
that's short term though, isn't it?
Because it's short term. I've got a goal in mind. I'm going on holiday. I'm going to overindulge on holiday. But also with those lower carbs, because they are such an immediate energy source, our quickest energy source is sugar, which is why we crave it when we're tired, because we just think our body doesn't know that you're watching your 7th episode of Game of Thrones. It just knows that you're tired. So it thinks, okay, right, energy, sugar. It doesn't, we think for survival. So our body will tell us, right, we need sugar, because it's our most immediate energy source. So keeping that in is good. But also, if you do go lower carb, then obviously your energy will drop. And what a lot of people, if they're not, I guess, seasoned in kind of going like I know, like I said, for example, I'll do like a 4-week stint where I go, right, it's 4 weeks, but I'm going to push my protein up. You can't just drop your carbs out. You can't just drop your fats out. You have to make adjustments. So for numbers' sake, 2,000 calories, whether it's X percentage of protein, fats, or carbs, or Y percentage, it's still 2,000 calories. So if you were to drop your protein and increase, you then have to increase fats or carbs. If you were to then drop fats or carbs, you then have to increase your protein. So we're still looking for, in terms of fat loss and stuff like that, like a calorie deficit is the goal. We just then utilize proteins, carbs, and fats for different ways. Fats are tastier. They're a lot yummier, but they come with a heavy tax because they're over twice the calories. Protein makes you feel fuller for longer, but then it potentially might mean that for someone like Richard, who's trying to be more meat conscious, it might mean that his then brain starts thinking, oh, maybe I could have that. I need to try and find a protein source that isn't meat now. So it's just kind of, it's just being, again, it's being aware. I know I talk a lot, guys, but going low carb as well does mean that you will be a lot more tired, which is where a lot of people falter. And actually, they'll go low carb, and then they'll do it for a day, they'll do it for 2 days, and then they binge. And it's like, well, you just lost your calorie deficit there. It's like if you get paid weekly and you save it for 2 weeks, and you save £200 over 2 weeks, but then the next 2 weeks you spend £200 more than you should have. Yes, you saved for 2 weeks, but you still lost the money. It's the same concept. It's a numbers game essentially. Yeah. So again, if you can't stick to low carb, you'll lose at the end anyway. It's like gambling, the house always wins. So if low carb doesn't work for you, then I wouldn't even entertain it. Just think lower carb. The ER is essential lower than what you were doing.
Actually, you said lots of really good things today, that just little things like that actually really
clarity.
Good.
Clarity. It's, guys, this is what my name is Joe Mitten, and Mitten Fitness is MitFit, so it's literally my name. This is all I've ever done, it's all I've ever wanted to do, and it's all I ever spend my time doing. So I love it. And it's the way I see it is, I do all the research, I do all the studying, I do all the learning, so that I can make it one simple sentence that just completely changes. I think it was, I can't remember who it was. I mean, I can't even remember. I think it was Einstein said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand the topic. So it's the idea for me is to learn as much as I can, so that when you guys have questions, I'm really bad at answering in 2 or 3 sentences because I talk much. The idea is, the concept is for me to be able to answer within a quick few sentences. But yeah, any more questions, guys? Because I'm conscious of taking up too much of your Tuesday evening. No? We good? Cool. Awesome. I appreciate every single one of you for jumping on and for staying. It really does mean a lot. Hopefully you've at least learned one thing, and hopefully you enjoyed it. It's been great chatting with you all. I put my email in the chat in case anyone needs it. Feel free to, even if you just think, actually, I'll take it, and then I might have some more questions tomorrow, fire it over. But I'll be sending some stuff over to Tansy anyway, which I'm guessing, as you guys have booked on for this, she probably has your deets so she can relay it on. But yeah, you are more than welcome, everyone. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much. Have the most amazing weekend, whatever it is you're doing. And those charts, don't worry, Carol, they're on their way.
Okay, thank you.
Enjoy your birthday cake when it comes.
I will. I'm very basic. It's a Victoria sponge with fondant icing. I'm very basic. But
Bye.
Cheers, guys.
Have a good birthday. Bye.
Thank you.